Hey everybody, T-Man here, bringing you another video, and this one is going to be about how the good old days of wrestling are long gone. That's right, this video is going to be jumping about a lot of different topics about how wrestling's not the same, you know, compared to the 80s, the 90s, the Attitude Era, you know, and I don't think we're ever going to see wrestling go back how it ever was, you know. Too much damage has happened, and then this video is also going to kind of follow up my video I did yesterday about Vince McMahon out of touch. If you've seen that one, this will kind of be like a continuation of my Vince McMahon out of touch, because when I made that video, I did that before the Steve Austin McMahon podcast they did on the WWE network, and now, you know, it's 24 hours removed from that podcast, and now, you know, let's talk a little bit about that, and then I'll just segue into my into how I think the good old days of wrestling is gone. And I think that podcast, I think Vince McMahon did a good job of disguising how bad you know, the shape of the company is in, you know. I mean, Steve Austin asked Vince McMahon everything. You know, I thought this was going to be more WWE scripted. They were going to give Austin a set of questions to ask Vince, and they didn't. They let Stone Cold Steve Austin do what he does on his podcast, which his podcast really is a good show. I've been listening to the beginning. I recommend it. If you guys want to listen to his podcast, it's on Podcast One. They have great wrestling podcasts. They have Goldberg, Jericho, Roddy Piper, you know, all different kinds. JR, good podcast on Podcast One. Anyways, Austin really asked all the questions, mentioned the CM Punk thing. Vince McMahon kind of circled around a lot of stuff, but if you guys go back and watch that podcast, it's really good. And Austin even, you know, asked McMahon, why is it so hard to come up with superstars today, you know? And he just danced around a lot of questions. Vince didn't really answer anything in specific. And the funniest thing I thought about that video was how Vince McMahon honestly thinks he is in touch with the fans and he's giving the fans what they want. That is completely horseshit. And I think even Austin knew that was horseshit. I mean, he's like, really? You think at one point in that interview, he even says, yeah, you really think you're giving the fans, like, you know, what you want? I mean, they're really not. And like, if you go on Twitter and during the Raws, all the Raw segment, because on Twitter, WWE on Twitter, they post like every 5 minutes, it seems like, on Twitter. And if you read all the comments from you guys, the fans, a lot of it's negative. A lot of it's like, oh, this shit again, this segment again, you know. Vince, you are out of touch. And like I said, I've said in many of my videos, the perfect example of how he is out of touch was with that last year Royal Rumble, having Dave Bautista win the Royal Rumble, making his comeback. Because first of all, a lot of people when Batista was in wrestling fell out. Because that was a while ago. I think that was 2008. I forgot when it was. It was a few years back. It wasn't quite PG era yet when Batista. I think it was starting to go that way. And you know, so much has changed. A lot of that fan base is not there anymore. And not to mention, I don't think they really care. I mean, I'm not talking shit about Batista. I like Batista, but he's not a fan favorite. You know, a lot of people don't like Dave Bautista, you know, and Vince McMahon was out of touch because anybody could see the writing was on the wall. He says he's listening to the fans. My gosh, during that period of time, it was all over the wall about CM Punk. Not CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, I'm sorry. CM Punk was real hot at the time too last year going into WrestleMania. WWE did all they can to slow his jets down. But with Daniel Bryan, I mean, that was his year. WrestleMania 30 was his year. He should have won the Royal Rumble after his match with Bray Wyatt last year. You know, I mean, it's all thing, but it's just an example of how out of touch he really is. That was a perfect example. I mean, it's not messing up a storyline. You're talking about your main storyline of WrestleMania. That's something you can't fuck up, Vince. Okay, I mean, sure, screw ups happen. But nobody's perfect. You're always going to make writing mistakes. But WrestleMania should have been, really booked and scheduled a long time ago. And if Randy Orton and Batista was seriously the road you were going to go down, you're more out of touch than I thought. And then that's just an example. Okay, and now going back to the title of this video, I hope WWE won't ever be the same. It won't. Of course, we all know there's really no other competition. Yeah, TNA. I like TNA. I do. They have great wrestling over there. But let's face it, they're never ever going to reach to the WWE level. Okay, and WWE at this point they're just living off a name. They're living off of money, and they're living off a lot of good stuff. Okay, from the past. I feel WWE is living off of the past, and they're living off their reputation of WWE, because everybody that knows professional wrestling or does not know wrestling, everyone knows about WWE. Okay, they're like the NFL of wrestling, or the UFC of fighting. They are the top promotion of its brand, and it's just not going to be the same anymore, because you don't have the territorial system. Okay, and I think that is crucial, man. God, I mean, yeah, you had the indie scenes, but it's not the same. I mean, if you guys don't know anything about the territorial system, I mean, you could have a guy like Sting or Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. Blanchard. You could have these guys, and especially Honor and Tully, they'll go somewhere, and if they don't like it, they could go somewhere else, get over. And if they don't get over at, like, let's say if you don't get over in Mid-South, you could go someplace, you could go to World Class, and then if you don't go over one place, you could maybe get over with another crowd, and then once when you're hot and they start pushing you on TV, then it's just more stars are made. If you think about it, back in the day, that's why we had so many stars in the 80s and the 90s. If you think about all the stars we have in the 80s and 90s, I'm not going to name all of them. I'll name a few, like Dusty Rhodes and Hogan and Flair and Bret Hart. I mean, all these guys grew up in the territorial system. Arn and Tully. There's just so many people that came from that, and that's just long gone. And yeah, they tried to create NXT to develop the new stars from there, and it's a great idea, but it's not the same, because you got two guys in charge that Vince, I believe, is completely out of touch of he doesn't even call it pro wrestling. I mean, come on, he calls it sports entertainment, and yes, it is entertainment. But what they're doing inside that ring, and what's getting you to watch, and what's the main stage in that fucking center, is a fucking ring. And what do you do in the ring? You wrestle in the ring. Okay, you wrestle. Okay, he's like, I'm in entertainment, sports entertainment. Yeah, it's sports entertainment. But what are you doing that's entertaining? Okay, we all know it's scripted. We all know, what they do. The outcome is, already decided and all that. But what these guys are doing, they're wrestling in that ring. Okay. It's professional wrestling, Vince, not sports entertainment, you stupid asshole. Okay? Like, seriously. And I don't want this to be about bashing Vince. And here, I'll say something positive about Vince, because I like Vince, and he has done a lot of things about good for the sport of wrestling, but I think, like, right now, what he is and why WWE is so big, Vince McMahon is a good businessman. Okay, he used to be a good wrestling promoter, and here's the thing: you guys have to learn the difference of. There's a difference between a wrestling promoter and a businessman. Okay, Vince McMahon is a good businessman. He could handle, the boardroom. He could handle all different types of things, stocks and whatever else. He could handle the bookings and all that. But when it comes down to his actual in-ring work, I don't think they're really paying a lot of attention to that. People's always going to go to a wrestling show. Okay, there's always going to be wrestling fans out there, and Vince knows that. There's a longest. They have that name, WWE. People are going to go no matter what the fuck they put on. They could put on Hornswoggle against, what's his name? The little bull guy, from that one tag team, El Torito. They put those guys in the main event of WrestleMania. People are going to bitch and bark or whatever. And guess what? People are still going to come. And Vince knows that. Okay? Vince knows there's always going to be wrestling fans out there. So he's just so out of touch with the promoting side of it, you know, and I just don't think he books really good storylines anymore. I mean, and then Stone Cold on the podcast even asked him about Cesaro, and if you guys seen my videos, you'll know I think Cesaro is the best pro wrestler on that roster. The man could have a 5-star match anytime. I mean, if you watch his match and really focus in on his match, he is the best professional wrestler on that roster. He's not a great gimmick. He is missing a lot of things. I'm not saying he's ready to win the title and ready for the mainstream, but if you have a guy in this caliber that could make your main event so interesting, and no matter who he works with, give you 5-star matches, you have to work, okay? You have to focus all your energy, not all your energy, but a lot of damn energy on building that character, because once when you find that thing for him, once you find his niche and really put him, he'll find his way, and he's going to give you great matches and great storylines, okay? And I've said it a lot of times. I mean, another thing I feel like wrestling will never be the same and the good old days are gone is because the titles don't mean anything anymore, okay? I mean, every time in like from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the titles always meant something. I mean, right now, I was just watching the Clash of the Champions, 88, I think it was the 3rd Clash of the Champions, and the main event was a United States heavyweight title belt, and they made it sound so big, like it's not they didn't need the world champion in the main event because the titles meant so much. You know, they main evented it and they promoted it like it was a world title match, so it meant something to you. Okay, the titles meant something, and you know what? I thought they were going to do this now in WWE in the current day. Now that Brock Lesnar is a part-time champion, I did a video on that. You guys could check that out. Part-time, what I think about Brock Lesnar being a part-time champion. I did a video about a week back, but I thought, hey man, this is probably a good time that they could build the Intercontinental United States title back to how it used to be, and really like main event them and promote it. The main event, a title match for the United States Heavyweight Championship, and they don't book it like that. That's that way you have to book things. And then like even with the title reigns, even for the World Heavyweight title reigns, and that's another mistake I think they made a while back. Was back when they had the World Heavyweight title and the WWE title. Like I felt like the heavyweight title kind of reminded me of how the Intercontinental title used to be, you know, because there could only be one great title. I understand they did the brand extension thing, but that brand extension with Raw and SmackDown went on way too long. It probably should have ended in like 2006 or 7. It really should have. It went on way too long, and then like they were just giving people, I'm not bashing these names, like a Mark Henry and Jack Swagger and Ziggler, they gave these guys the heavyweight title, and it more seemed like how the Intercontinental title used to be. The Intercontinental title used to be the working bout, used to be really mean something. And I felt like, you know, the heavyweight title almost became like the new Intercontinental title at the end of that, you know. And then even with the WWE Championship in the last 10 years, whoever wins the WWE Championship should mean something, okay? It should mean something. Yes, it's entertainment, but it needs to mean something. And after they lose the title, they need to have a plan for them to keep them mainstream. Perfect example. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you a perfect example. There's many, but one name that came to mind, Sheamus. They gave Sheamus the title a few years, the WWE title, not the World Heavyweight. He had the World Heavyweight also, but I remember he beat John Cena. I believe it was a TLC match, or I think it was a tables match or something a few years back. I forgot what year that was. Anyways, Sheamus won the belt, and he was still kind of new, but was only within the WWE for, I believe, within a year at that point. He was still kind of a rookie, and I liked it. I'm like, okay, that's okay. They're building a star, and after he lost the title, and especially now, if you see Sheamus, he's like nothing. You know, he battles the Intercontinental title, U.S. titles that don't really mean nothing anymore, and they didn't really have a long-term plan for somebody. I mean, once when you give somebody the WWE title, it has to mean something. Even after they lose the bout, it's like they're still a top guy. Whoever wins the title is a top guy. Okay? So in my opinion, if you're giving someone that title, it means they're a top guy and they need to be scheduled like a top guy. And CM Punk even said in his podcast, it's all about John Cena, okay? No one else has future storylines booked 3, 4, 5 months in advance, and they have to. They have to have a plan, especially for your top guys. If you're going to give someone the title, have a plan for them, a significant plan. Like, I bet you, Daniel Bryan's coming back right now. Do they have a really good mainstream plan for him? Probably not. They're probably going to throw him in against who knows, what. Book him accordingly. Same thing with Sheamus. I feel like now they have to build Sheamus all over again. And it's sad because this guy was a WWE champion and a World Heavyweight champion. And wrestling's not ever going to be the same, because as long as us that are watching, diehard wrestling fans, and let's face it, we're never going to stop watching. And, sure, we fall in and out at times. There's times where I may not watch Raw for a while, and you'll always still watch, so you always eventually come back and watch the product. And then after Vince, you got Triple H and Stephanie, and they're just going to do Vince's same formula, but a little bit different. And I think it's just going to get worse under Triple H and Stephanie. Triple H knows the business, but I don't think he can run it, that great. Vince is not doing a great job the last 10 years, but I think it's going to be worse under Triple H. There's just so many examples how wrestling just won't be the same again. So that was an example there with the WWE Championship. They have to make that mean something again. And then another thing that they talked about in the Austin podcast, they have to let these guys come out of their shell. Okay, the writers have everything fucking written for them. Okay, and I understand. Even back in the day, it was like that too. In the Attitude Era in the 80s, like the writing team, they would have something for them, but then they would take that interview and they would make it their own. Sometimes when these guys cut promos, I feel like it's just so like they're just studying off a read of paper, like they're just reading off the paper, like when they're cutting a promo, like especially Daniel Bryan. I love him. I love that he's getting a push. But when he does his promos, you could tell that he's not making it his own. He's just rehearsing what WWE told him. Look what Austin and everyone did. And even Austin knows, okay? He said it in the most respectful way in that podcast. He knows how bad WWE needs to start fixing things and how many more stars they need. He talked about that. And he even issued a challenge to the stars. He's like, you guys have to take more risks. Even if it means your job, you have to take risks, and you have to go out there and you have to do something. Make it your own. Grab that brass ring. You cannot wait for Vince McMahon and the writing team to notice you and do something, because they're so fucking oblivious. You're going to be waiting forever, pal. Seriously. They have to. And then another answer I didn't like from Vince McMahon on that podcast. Vince McMahon was saying, oh yeah, I'm happy. Like Austin said, yeah, everyone's walking around on eggshells because this is the only place to go. And Vince kind of seemed like proud of that. No, your guys shouldn't feel like they're walking on eggshells and fearing for their job because it's the only game in town. Let them take risks. Okay, encourage them to bring their ideas out, because that's what the business needs. It needs more stars. And I under this writing regime that they have 20-something writers and none of them are really wrestling guys because Vince thinks he's in the fucking entertainment business. Go to fucking Vegas, Vince. This is professional wrestling. Yes, it's sports entertainment because it's entertaining us, but he thinks he's some sort of fucking showgirl, Vince McMahon. Seriously, Vince. It's sports entertainment, but it's professional wrestling. You have a fucking ring with 3 fucking ropes around it in the square fucking circle, okay? Okay, so stop fucking up, Vince. Like, seriously. Like I said, it's not like I hate Vince McMahon. I don't. I think he has done genius things throughout his very long overdue run in wrestling. Everyone's done great things. But Vince, in the last 10 years, I believe, is killing wrestling, and I believe it's always going to be around. It's never going to go away. The WWE is always going to be around in some fraction. It's always going to be around, but it's never going to be how it used to be. It's never going to be as epic. The titles are never going to mean as much as it used to. It's just, I feel like WWE's is like fast food. I'm gonna relate it to fast food. It's good. McDonald's, it'll it'll fulfill you, you know, it'll give you, you know, the quick satisfaction, you know, go over there, eat a burger. Is it the greatest burger in the world, McDonald's? No, of course not. But, you know, it's something, you know, that'll take care of your needs for now, you know? I'm like, okay, I'll take care of my hunger. But is it a nice, great diner burger, like an In-N-Out in California? You know, they have In-N-Out, or a great, you know, tasting burger? No. Is it the best, like, burger you're ever going to have in your life? No. It's fast food. And that's what WWE has became. WWE has became fast food wrestling. You know, they'll give you this and that. I'm like, here we go. Wrestling, you know, but it's not how it used to be, and it never will be. Anyways, guys, this video ran a little bit long. Got into another rant. Tried not to do that. If you have any questions or anything regarding this or anything else or any video ideas, I would be happy to pump them out for you. Until then, guys, take care, and I'll see you for the next video. Later, guys.